So body geometry has been around for nearly 20 years now, and it's worth reminding viewers what the concept of the technology is all about. And it's amazing to see a skeleton of a foot and how complex it really is, all the little tiny bones there. So what is body geometry all about?
It dates back actually to early 2000s, late 90s really, with saddles. Saddles was the first product we made that had the body geometry moniker, which got abbreviated to BG, but essentially it stands for body geometry. And at that time, science was really becoming more prevalent in the sport of cycling. And what we noticed and we were listening out for were riders that were complaining about something when they rode their bikes, and we wanted to try and resolve those problems. And with saddles, it was all about erectile dysfunction, and that's how that product developed. You know, with the body geometry cutout and the groove.
Yep.
With the shoes, the element really that we were trying to focus on was predominantly knee pain, discomfort when riding, but it was focused on the knee and how we could somehow help riders through the design of the shoe. Because you know, when we're on the bike, we've got 3 contact points. You know, we've got our hands, we've got our bum, we've got our feet. So we've already looked at the saddles and how that relates to, you know, comfort and discomfort and your fit on the bike. With the shoes, that was a new sort of new area for us to dig into. And there are 3 things really that make up the body geometry element of a shoe. Now 2 of them are in the insole and 1 of them is in the actual sole of the shoe.
So we've got some insoles here, haven't we, which demonstrate the features you're going to talk about.
Yeah, so these insoles that you're holding are the aftermarket insoles. Now they are actually replicated with the shoes you buy off the shelf. Most of the shoes you buy off the shelf will have a version of this red one. That's sort of our lowest contoured insole.
Okay.
And a lot of shoes, particularly in the early days in cycling, you really just got a thin piece of material. You know, it's like an odor eater. You know, it's just like flat. And we noticed that the more support you could give the foot, the more you could stop the foot compressing as you push down on the pedals. Can you see what's happening there? You know, you can imagine all the body weight trying to get maximum power into the pedals. But as you do that, your foot collapses. So these insoles have got built up arches, and all of us will have different heights of our arch. And what we're trying to do here is match the insole to the height of the arch of the foot.
Okay, yeah.
So you're going to be different to me, I'm going to be different to another person. Generally, when you buy the shoes, they're obviously all the same. Now, there is a level of support, as I said, already in the shoe. This just allows you to customize it a bit more. And the other area that's interesting is there is a small, you probably can't see it on the camera, but there is a small bump here, which feels like, I mean, you've ridden our shoes for a long time. It feels like there's almost a stone underneath the footbed when you put your foot in. Yeah. But the idea here is, if people get numb feet, a lot of the time it's because they've really, really clamped the upper, so that their foot gets compressed and compressed. And within all these areas here, we've got nerves, and obviously there's veins and there's blood flowing around there. So the more we pinch it, the more we're restricting that movement, which can lead for a lot of people to some numbness. This little bump that you've got underneath the sole just lifts from the bottom up, so that if you're tightening down, you're not going to tighten so much that your nerves are being pinched and you get that numbness. So yeah, so in the sole you've got the arch, and then you've got the metatarsal button, which is that little lump.
Okay. So the insole is one part of the battle to try and improve comfort, reduce risk of injury.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned the shoe as well. So the shoe has a design to
Yeah.
kind of match the inner sole.
Yeah, and it's all of these. I mean, we've got shoes going way, way, way back here. I mean, this is an old pair of yours, but it's easy to see whether you haven't got the cleat on. But this shoe is not flat, so it's not completely flat. It's actually, if I was to be extreme, it's like that.
Okay.
Okay, it's not like that, but it's angled. So there's more material on the inside and less on the outside. And the idea being that just that little orientation of mainly of the forefoot, it's not the whole foot, just the forefoot, that little orientation, again, mimics our feet, because our feet aren't like that. They're like that. So having that shoe mirror our foot structure means that we're actually supporting our foot as it wants to be, rather than positioning it into a very flat plane. And again, because we're not talking about walking, we're not talking about running, we're not talking about the things that we naturally were designed to do, riding a bike isn't particularly natural, is it? So the fact that we can stop our foot collapsing means that we're also not affecting the kinetic chain, because at the end of this is a knee, and above the knee is a hip. So, you can imagine this rocking around left and right, inside and outside, that's making your knee move around.
Okay.
So that kinetic chain is where the injury comes from. So if we can stop this and support it as it wants to be naturally, then the knee itself isn't going to rock around as much, and that kinetic chain is therefore more stable, less repetitive strain injury essentially, and that's the third element of the body geometry mix.
Correct.
2 in here and 1 in the sole of the shoes, and that's in all of the shoes. That's whether you're buying an entry level Torch 1 shoe, a Recon shoe for mountain biking, even our TFO sort of more trail riding shoes have got all of these 3 elements of body geometry into them. So it's something we have been doing for nigh on 20 years.
20 years, wow.
Yeah. I mean, these are a set of my shoes from the early 2000s, and body geometry.
And it's fair to say 20 years ago, nobody else was doing anything close to this, and bike fit wasn't really an established part of cycling like it is now.
Correct.
So
yeah.
you're really looking at the bike fit and really analysing the issues that cyclists had at the time with comfort on the bike and getting the most power out when they're pedaling.
Yeah, I mean, bike fit was around. There were some great pros, and there still are some, fantastic fitters out there. But it was one person's source of knowledge, and that's great if you live near that one person. But what happens if you don't, and you don't have that ability to go and talk to someone? So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure there were good fitters, scientifically trained, around the country, around the world, that had the same knowledge. They weren't working on their personal experience, they were working on scientific experience, like you would with a doctor. You want them all to know how to fix you, not the fact that one person has done it 5 times, but the person in the next village has never done it. So we tried to establish a methodology and a science that everyone could benefit from.
I think everyone is a key, because I know how popular these shoes have been over the years with cyclists of all types, of all brand loyalties. You do see a lot of specialised shoes out there. And talking of shoes, we've assembled some classics here in front of us. So my first experience was back in 2005, 2006, which these are, I think.
Yeah.
I do remember the impact these had, not only the BG technology, but also the Burdar, which was a revolution back then. So can we talk a bit about the evolution of how the shoe has developed?
Sure.
Since then?
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of models here, and there are some prototypes. This is a prototype shoe. A couple of yours.
Just put that back. It smells a bit. So that's an old shoe, but that really kind of the foundation of what we see now, isn't it? Everything built upon what you did back then.
Yeah, because that's the way to look at it. It isn't about a clean slate and build a new shoe.
Okay.
You have to think of evolutionary developments. Like you said, this BOA dial that's from 2005 is an early BOA dial.
Still works though.
Still works though. This BOA dial
Works
is
better.
current.
Yeah.
And there's versions all the way, across the development of the shoes. So with our early shoes, the BOA dial being one element, the body geometry part of the equation we've already spoken about. But after that, you're starting to talk about pretty much a sole construction, an upper construction, and if you want to take it in isolation, the heel cup.
Okay.
The rest is either hardware, like your boas and your Velcro straps, or to a greater or lesser extent, a material conversation.
Okay.
And as we go through the process and as we develop shoes and we iterate and renew, we take lessons and improve, hopefully, for the majority of riders, the shoe that they're going to buy and they're going to wear and they're going to enjoy. So as an example, if we take your shoes here, these are
S-Works 6.
Yeah, these are a 6, and whether you can see on, if it's more contrast against me, or we can do some amazing video stuff later, but you'll see how close this heel cup is and how locked in you're going to feel when you're riding that shoe. It's really locked,
Yeah.
which is fantastic for some people.
It's still a great shoe though. I have fond memories of wearing that shoe.
Yeah. This might look, if you look at the heel cup, quite similar, but actually there's quite a contrast between the fit of this heel and the fit of this heel. And it's not to say that this is better than this, but it is different, and we're trying to embrace the majority of riders.
Okay.
So whereas we have one shoe here at a performance level for most people, and we developed a better version of that, hopefully to capture even more riders. And one of the differences between this and this is going to be the heel cup. And as we look to the new shoe, that has changed again. When you consider the sole, so this is your sole on your shoe with no cleat on, you're not riding these anymore.
No, retired.
You're retired, but you still got them. It's a bit of history. And then your existing sole, there are definitely similarities. The body geometry element is still there, but there are developments. So we go from effectively a 6 shoe to a 7 shoe. This was a power spine, so we removed material where we didn't want it.
Okay.
It's quite apparent when you look at the vent.
Wow, yes.
Again, it's got no, but you can see how it's been cut away.
It's funny because these are actually my own shoes. I should have cleaned them really, but I taped over the vent on the for winter riding.
Yep.
UK customization there.
Yep, there you go. but that change in the sole is to improve the ride.
Okay.
Based on an earlier iteration. And if you look at the new sole, it's changed again. So this is an improvement on this, and this is an improvement on this, and this is an improvement on this. There is a development history. The heel cups, like we said, you'll see that there's a development history. The shape, the materials, the overlay of fabrics changes and changes and changes. So nothing is done really like clean slate, ignore everything we knew, because we've had some valuable lessons.
Yeah, you can see how subtle that evolution is. You can see you kept the good bits of BOA dials, which you've improved, and different details, and then you can see what you have improved, like the sole, different places. And then what's interesting when we get to sort of here, after having like one S-Works shoes, you sort of branch out, offering different types of S-Works shoes. Rather than one shoe fits all, we now have 3 shoes fit different requirements.
And you're 100% right, and because what we've done is we've got to a point where, well, how do you improve on a shoe that really is universally liked. A lot of people race them, as you know. A lot of the pro peloton race them with or without sponsorship, actually.
Yeah.
And when you get to that point, those changes can become unhelpful for some riders. If you want to make something lighter, well, that might mean that you make it more fragile, or you remove the stiffness, because there comes a point where the gains are really, really minimal. So it's much easier for us to go at that point, well, we might want riders that want a stiffer or a more locked in feel. Well, to do that to that singular shoe is isolating to other riders. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we'll make the Aries, and that rider who wants that complete locked in feel has got an opportunity to ride like that.
Okay, yeah.
But the riders that don't want it, they're not getting a detrimental experience, because they can still ride around in their existing S-Works 7.
Okay.
So now you've got riders that want option A and riders that want option B. What we're finding is the one rider who wants their shoe to be as it is isn't suffering because another rider wants a far more locked in and performance level shoe. You still get to ride your shoe without having to ride the characteristics of the things I want.
Okay.
You're over there, I'm over here.
Yeah.
You've got your shoe and I've got my shoe, and everyone's happy.
But they both have in common the underlying technology of body geometry.
Yeah.
Despite the differences, they still have the same inner sole, all those features that improve comfort, reduce injury.
Completely, yeah, completely. Because those are sort of, they're our foundation.
Okay.
We know that they work.
Yeah.
It's not. This isn't a new idea. We're talking about it like it's like, oh look, it's life changing, and it is.
Yeah.
But it's also been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, those features are inherent in all of our shoes. The beauty of it is, if we only had to make one shoe, then we'd be compromising for some riders.
Okay.
Because we have multiple S-Works shoes, if you want performance, you can have performance, but you can have it in the way that works for you.
Yeah.
Because there's more than one option at the top of the tree.
Okay. So talking about options, we're focusing on S-Works, clearly, the top of the tree, but we also have the Torch range, which brings a lot of the technology down to a lower, more accessible price point. So let's talk about how that's happened then as well.
So with the Torch range of shoes, because that's what it is, it's 3 models.
Yep.
And the experience is really going to be for your road rider that maybe is not investing in the S-Works level. These are a premium level of shoe, but that doesn't mean that performance should only be at that level.
Okay.
You want people that at any level to have a shoe that works for their riding style. So we've got 3 models here: Torch 1, 2, and 3. Dead simple, and each one of those shoes offers something a little different to the S-Works rider. And some people might actually prefer those features to these features.
Okay.
So it's not just a case of they're not quite as good. It's about actually, for someone let's say someone who's riding Le Jog, okay, they're going to spend X amount of days in the saddle, back to back to back to back to back to back. If their experience isn't high road performance, they may not want a super stiff, minimal upper shoe. They might want something that gives them a bit more cushion, a bit more comfort. Not really necessarily a change in stiffness level, although that does exist, but more an increase in the comfort level. So what we have here is 3 different soles being utilised on the 1, 2, and 3. So they differ on the sole.
Okay.
And also 3 different uppers. So we have different materials and different technologies. We have sewn uppers versus welded uppers. We have boa closures on all models, but some are double boas and some are single boas. So what you see here is the boa lacing here having this cross design versus this sort of figure of 8 lacing system. That actually closes on your foot in a very different way. This is far more uniform and almost sock-like in the way it closes up above your upper, whereas this is very zonal. You can make the top very stiff or very locked in, and the bottom a bit looser. So they do fit, not from a sizing, you know, I'm a size 8, I'm a size 9, I have to change my fit, but actually the way they morph around your...
Like sort of compression on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we still have body geometry underlying it all. So that trickled down from the S-Works down to...
Absolutely everything.
So even the customer here is getting the same benefit.
Yeah, yeah. And the ability to again, increase that insole or decrease, you know, as you may want to do. So yeah, you can customize it.
And you can see a strong similarity, can't you, with we're even going back a few.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, this one's a few years old now, but this one looks very similar. Not the same, obviously, but
yeah, but it's that technology. When you look at the technology, in fact, if you go to here, you see very, very similar.
oh yes,
Because we learnt lessons here, and we're able to bring those lessons that we've learned into lower price models as the world moves on.
and that brings us neatly onto the new shoe. So what do we have here then?
So this is one I made earlier because it's got my cleats on, and this is the new S-Works Torch.
S-Works Torch. So explain how Torch and S-Works have come together in one shoe.
Okay, so S-Works Torch for everyone is a brand new product, and it is actually the replacement to the S-Works 7.
Okay.
Within our S-Works category at the moment, we have the Vent, we have the Aries, and we have the 7. And the 7 is the one that most people will know. It's been around the longest. But when we developed the Aries, we developed a shoe that was a lot more able to lock the foot in. It was great for power transfer as far as locking the foot and really making that explosive energy go to the pedal. So as we developed the new version of our most popular shoe, we were able to adapt that shoe as well to be a bit more universal, because we've got this one.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So that become more specialised and
Exactly.
allowed the new 7 to be a bit more general
Universal,
appeal,
yeah,
universal
exactly.
appeal.
So the S-Works Torch, because it's not an S-Works 8, S-Works 8 doesn't exist. The S-Works and the nomenclature 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's gone.
Okay.
It's replaced now by S-Works Torch. And that means that, you know, you can see the similarity or the nod to the 1, the 2, the 3,
Yeah.
and the S-Works.
But you can see quite a serious step up from those shoes, as good as they look, to this shoe here.
Yeah.
Like the
yeah.
boa dial and the texture and materials.
Yeah, so if you look at these two as an example, this is the existing 7, this is the new Torch, and you might look and go, well, they look pretty similar. But there are a lot of developments that have happened from here to here.
And straight away I can see there's no Velcro dial, Velcro strap at the front.
Yep, so the Velcro strap is, let's talk about that for a second. The Velcro strap is on a lot of the Torch shoes, and some people don't touch it at all.
Okay.
They don't use it. I don't know whether you use it on yours, but some people don't touch it at all. It's just there, and it's there as a way of increasing or decreasing the volume of the forefoot. But what we've done is we've removed it, and we've reorientated the boa dial. So the boa dial here and on the new shoe is actually looking at a different angle.
Oh, I see.
Pulling across the shoe rather than, towards the forefoot of the shoe rather than straight across the shoe. So if you think about it, that's sort of coming from towards the big toe and up and over,
Okay.
rather than the instep and up and over. And that means that the volume of the forefoot can be adjusted by the boa dial rather than needing to use
Okay,
the
makes
Velcro
sense.
strap. You'll also see, and it's quite subtle, you might need to do a close-up, but you'll see on the material side of the S-Works Torch, there is a different finish where the big toe is to where the rest of the toes are. And that's actually additional material that we've got here, which means structurally, as we're pulling, we've got something solid to pull against.
So,
Does that
okay.
make sense? Something much more
Yep.
stiff to pull against. So here, firmer material, but actually here, it's a lot more supple and a lot more. So the Velcro dial has gone, yeah, but the orientation of the BOA dials and the way we're utilising the material, the zonal areas, means that we're able to adjust the forefoot by utilising the BOA dial.
Okay.
So again, looking at the two shoes together, on the existing 7, to your point, the instep rolls over and across, whereas on the new shoe, it actually stops way shorter. So you've got the tongue is there to give you that comfort, but it's not restricting the movement on your dorsal sort of bone,
Okay.
which is again a development we learnt from the Aries.
This shoe benefits from the developments on this shoe here, which you wouldn't imagine put them side by side. They look so different.
Yeah, but it's the understanding of the foot that we took in its development of the Aries that we now know that. We now have that knowledge. We thought, okay, we know that different people's dorsal protrusion of their foot, sort of this part, can have a lot of pressure pushed down on it. And you can see how that's going to work with this existing shoe. Yep, that whole element of how to keep that forefoot locked in, but you know, for comfort, for security, for performance, yeah, we've now managed to redesign the upper that we don't need it anymore.
Taking 20 years to kill the Velcro.
Well, it's not killed because we still have it on those models.
Yeah. And then if we turn the shoe over, what strikes me is how smooth that carbon sole is, less shaping there.
Yeah. So the new sole, and it is a new sole, has changed both visually, aesthetically, if you like, but also structurally. So the heel pad, that's still replaceable.
Okay.
And the tie, you have tie nuts that the cleat bolts lock into, they're the same, but pretty much everything else is different. So significantly, we haven't tried to increase the stiffness of the sole. You know, this shoe is stiff enough. People don't ask us for a stiffer shoe.
Even the pros?
Even the pros are not looking for a stiffer. They are more than comfortable riding these shoes. So that was never a game plan. The game plan was never, let's increase the performance of the shoe. Well, the shoe already performs really well.
Yeah.
But technology has moved on. Manufacturing technology, you know.
Okay.
So the ability to make a sole that's as stiff, but improve it because it is actually lighter, not intentionally, but it is lighter, and increase the width. That's the main change between the two soles.
Okay.
So visually, yes, there's a change, but the new shoe is 4 millimeters wider in the forefoot, nothing towards the back of the shoe, but that increase in width really just expands the options for a lot of riders. If they don't want the Aries fit, they now have something that's quite different in the S-Works Torch fit.
Okay. So if you're coming from a S-Works 7, will you notice that extra increase in width?
Yeah. And I think that is 4 millimeters, it doesn't sound like a lot, but actually, you know, when you put the shoe on, you just feel like, well, I guess it does depend on your own foot, doesn't it? But you do feel like, oh, that's comfortable. It's not like my foot is flopping around on the inside, because it's not. I do feel like the material that's touching my foot is less pinching, less restrictive.
It's quite incredible to see how much the shoes have evolved and how much they've retained from the original.
Yeah.
And I still remember this being an amazing shoe and thinking, how can you possibly improve it? But here we are with the S-Works Torch, which brings 20 years of technology.
Yeah, and you'll see as well with the shoe you're holding, your old red one, and if you look at the heel cup to, you know, initially you think, well, this part of the shoe is just the same. You know, you've got that sort of hard plastic on the inside. It looks pretty similar. But when you flip it around to look at the other side, you'll notice that, yeah, it's now asymmetrical. Still has obviously the S-Works written on it, but it's now asymmetrical. So we've got the ability to reinforce that instep on one side, which is where most people need it.
Okay.
But we've been able to take the material away and increase comfort because of that on the outside of the shoe. So there are things that you can look at historically and see how that development has worked, that learning process of, okay, we tried this, we've moved on, and we've moved on, and we've moved on. We're not riding bikes that we rode 20 years ago.
True, yeah.
Yeah, the main factor with the new shoe was to improve comfort more than to improve performance. Okay. The performance part we had dialed already. The comfort factor, you know, a more comfortable shoe is a win for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everyone's going to enjoy that. So having that change in the heel cup, having that change to the tongue and the way the boa orientation, all of those features really just improve how that shoe feels on your foot, and obviously improves your ride, you know, in a very, very real way. Shoe's more comfortable.
Yeah.
That's great.
Happier cycling, isn't it?
Yeah.
What it's all about. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for taking us down memory lane and give us a refresher on BG, because I think a lot of people take for granted that's just, you know, part of the shoes, but especially if you're newer to cycling, you might not be familiar with it. So it's good to have a bit of a recap on how important it is.
Absolute pleasure.